Hello and welcome to Ask GCN Anything. This week we will try not to spend too much time talking about cycling's unwritten rules and, well, to put it bluntly, taking a poo at the side of the road whilst wearing a leader's jersey. But Brian Glissom has asked a very good question on the subject about unwritten rules, obviously not. Anyway, he asked, when do the unwritten rules of waiting for your opponent due to a crash / mechanical / poo actually come about? And then he finishes his question by saying, cracking show, by the way. And so yeah, it was a cracking show last week. Great work, Lasty and Martin. It was a brilliant video. But in answer to your question, Brian, the unwritten rules have been around for an awfully long time, actually, right since bike racing's earliest days, when actually, more than the race itself, it was about conquering the terrain, the road, and the elements fundamentally. And so riders actually used to stick together just in order to get through. And then as the years went by and cycling became more professional, then people recognised that they had a job to do. They all wanted to put a roof over their heads and feed their families and so forth. And so actually, rather than taking advantage of another's misfortune, where you knew that one day if you did that, it would come back and bite you on the arse. Actually, if everyone looked after themselves and each other, then you would all get through. Being liked and respected was actually a really fundamental part of winning bike races, which isn't to say that actually breaking of unwritten rules didn't happen. It definitely did. But I think now we're perhaps more familiar with it because, well, media means that we're more easily and quickly able to see these kind of things happening. We're also able to discuss them instantly as opposed to perhaps just whoever was at the pub that night. Anyway, moving on to another question. We got this one from It's a Boy Luis, who's asked, how do you choose the right frame size? Well, if you're completely new to cycling, then actually getting the right position on the bike is something you probably need a bit of help with, either from a local bike shop or an experienced cyclist. Once you know your preferred position, then you can tell if a frame's the right size very generally by making sure that you don't have loads of seat post hanging out or not enough seat post at all, or that you have a stem that's between 100 millimeters and 120 millimeters and you don't have loads of steer tube hanging out. But actually, a really cool thing is that you can tell at a glance if a frame will fit you by looking at the stack and reach measurements. So bike manufacturers will have these listed on their websites for every frame size, and you will know, if you know your stack and reach measurements, actually exactly which frame will fit you. Now, if you need help with stack and reach, then this video going on behind me shows you exactly what they are and how to find them. So it might be worth a watch. Firstly, we need to get our saddle position sorted. So the industry standard is to measure from the center of the bottom bracket axle up through the middle of the saddle rails to about 60% of the way along the saddle. Now, of course, that doesn't take into consideration your crank length and your pedal stack height. So if you're going to be swapping those, then it's a good idea to, with your crank parallel with the seat tube, measure from the pedal platform up to the top. Nutrition next, and I'm not entirely sure whether the dust has settled yet in the comment section under the video where we interviewed Dr. James Morton, who's the head of nutrition for Team Sky, but nevertheless, I'm going to wade into this subject fearlessly because Dylan Torreville has asked a question. He says, you always talk about what foods pro riders eat to enhance their performance, but what foods would you recommend for the majority of people? Well, I wouldn't say it's about specific foods. I'd say first and foremost, you just need a balanced diet. So by that, I mean not too much sugar, not too much fat, loads of fruit and vegetables, that kind of thing. Now, Matt here is actually giving some very solid advice, practical advice on that subject. So I would check that video out. But the one thing I would say is that if you do take flapjack out of an oven, that you make sure you wear oven gloves.
Last, but by no means least, one of our favourite on-the-bike foods, flapjacks. They're easy to eat as you ride, easy to put in your pocket, and taste good to boot, and provide exactly the sort of fuel that you need for your ride. And there's lots and lots of recipes out there, but why not start off with one from our very own Simon Richardson?
Quick fire round now, and taking the lead from Martin last week, I'm going to try and actually make this really quick. Jay Fields asked on Twitter, when should I replace a tyre? Well, Jay, if you are lucky enough, if I just reach back here, to have a certain tyre that will have wear limiters on, which are little indentations, there we go, there's one, then you'll know that when those indentations disappear, that your tyre is right before replacing. And if you don't have those, then effectively you'll see the same kind of thing where you'll get like a flat spot on the tread, so you literally see that the rubber is wearing out. Or the other thing to look out for, whether you've got wear indicators or not, is any cuts in the tyre. So it could be on the sidewall, it could be in the tread itself. And those are weak spots that could eventually end up giving you a blowout. So there you go. Hopefully that answers it, Jay. Right, next up, we've got this one from 100 Tour. GCN, we're all aware of the benefits of using nitrogen in our automobile and motorcycle tyres. I'm not entirely sure I was aware of that actually, but there we go. Could we see a potential benefit of using it in our bicycle tyres? Perhaps helium would be an interesting test. Well, helium I know about actually, because helium molecules are too small so that when you inflate your bike tyre with helium, it will effectively just seep straight out again. So your bike tyres can hold normal air, but pure helium just leaks straight out. So there we go. Chemistry fact for you there. Of which I don't know many, so don't ask anymore. Right, next up, too literal. With this 6.8 minimum weight kilo, 6.8 kilo minimum weight for bikes, sorry. Why don't they just make crazy lightweight bikes and then bump the weight up by having better brakes on there, so disc brakes? Or am I thinking about this way too simplistically? Well, it's definitely a good idea, but the trouble is when you do make bikes super lightweight, is actually the chances are you're going to lose something in terms of robustness as well. And so pro teams, although it might look like they're able to just use bikes and break them after a single day, actually they tend to ride the same frames for an awfully long period of time. And the other thing as well is that if you do happen to crash, you want to be able to get back on your bike again. You don't want to be left holding several different pieces and waiting for your team car. So robustness, strength, and general longevity is a really fundamentally important part of a frame. And so actually going super light just to have better brakes probably isn't that practical. But no doubt people will be doing it very soon. Right, K Crazy Cyclist has asked, what do you think about the Hammer series? So that is the new race series that's been launched by Velon, which is a group of 11 of the best world tour teams. And it's a completely new way of hosting bike races basically, the first one of which is next weekend. And although obviously we haven't had one yet, I am really excited about this. I think it's going to be a cool, novel format. It's not going to replace Grand Tours, it's not going to replace Paris-Roubaix, but it's going to be a way of seeing our favourite pro cyclists racing in a different way. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the Hammer series. Next one, Jeff T asked on Twitter, if you're riding at 40k an hour with a 20 km an hour tailwind, are you technically riding into a headwind? No, you are definitely still riding with a tailwind, but you would conceivably have 20 km an hour wind in your face. But it's still a tailwind because you measure the wind speed on the ground, I think. Right then, Sean Hartford, is it considered taboo to put road tyres and slam the stem on a cyclocross bike because he plans to ride mainly on pavement and he's got himself a cyclocross bargain? It's definitely not taboo. It's a great idea. Cyclocross bikes make fantastic bikes for riding on the pavement. The one thing I would suggest that you do is you take advantage of the big clearance on the bike and actually you put like 32mm wide tyres on there. So they'll be really comfy, and actually we know now that wider tyres roll better, and also you can put less pressure in with less risk of pinch flats. So actually they roll even faster than that. There we go, yeah, cross bikes on the road. Definitely cool. Moving on, we're going to tackle another question now. And sorry, can we skip it a little bit? I don't want, people are going to be scared off from that. They're still going to be slightly scared off, I guess. Anyway, we had this question sent in from Messer Cycles, who said that lately their cranks are making some very loud creaking and popping sounds when they ride. How can they fix this problem? Well, creaks on bikes is just the most annoying thing. And one of the worst things about it is actually tracking down the source of your creak. So I thought I had a noisy bottom bracket the other day, and I eventually tracked down the source of the problem as a front quick release skewer. I kid you not, my front quick release was making such a noise every time I got out of the saddle, but it sounded exactly like a bottom bracket creak. So because of the complexity of this problem, a couple of years ago, we actually set out to create a little video series that would hopefully help you track down the source of any creak on your bike. And this video here is like the first video in the series. It will direct you to the appropriate point. So click on that, and then you will hopefully find out whether or not it's your front quick release, your back quick release, your pedals, your chain rings, your bottom bracket, perhaps your saddle, your headset. It's a minefield, but good luck. You'll get there. The majority of creaks and noises, though, are usually the result of two parts moving slightly against each other under load. Think, for example, an alloy bar and stem moving very slightly when you go over a bump. Now, to correct most of those problems then is simply a case of checking the torque on the bolt and then applying the right preparation to that and the surfaces. So, for example, grease or fibre grip or thread lock. A lot of noises are more obvious than that, though, generally the result of poorly adjusted gears or brakes. And we have shown you how to sort those out in previous videos. Right then, last question. This one is sent in by Oliver Lane. Should a cyclist play music out loud when riding? Will it annoy other people and other cyclists? Which is an interesting slant on the question about listening to music while riding. Normally, it's about having headphones in, and should you do that? Personally, I don't tend to ride with music because I find it really unnerving if I can't hear traffic coming up from behind. But then in terms of playing music out loud, it's a tricky one, that. I don't think it would annoy me if someone had that, but I might think it was a little bit on the odd side. But fair enough, go for it. If you're in somewhere quiet and peaceful and you're on your own, then play your music. But all these questions about etiquette are definitely a complex issue. For that reason, Dan, Matt and Tom actually made a video on this subject a few years back now, but it is a definite goldmine. You need to go check it out. It's how to be a gentleman or gentle lady cyclist.
See another cyclist heading towards you? Don't ignore them.
Tom.
Raise a hand and give them a wave. Say hi, it's who we are, and it's polite.
Well, that absolute classic brings us to the end of Ask GCN Anything for this week. Do remember that you can ask us anything, either in the comments section down below or using the hashtag TalkBack on social media, and we may well answer your question next week. In the meantime, do make sure you subscribe to GCN. It's completely free. Just click on the globe, and then two more bits of content you might be interested in. The first one, I know some of you are interested in because you ask us this question actually quite a lot, so we made a video for you. It's how to get started again if you've had to come to a stop on a climb. That one is just down there. Or to see Tom Dumoulin's infamous, now a giant TCR bike, filmed before the incident. That one is just down there.